You finish the program, and for one day you feel it, lighter and cleaner, like you have finally reached the stage all the work was for. The retreat, the course, the 12th month of therapy, the shadow work journal you actually kept up with all year. This was supposed to be the finish line. Then Tuesday shows up, and you catch yourself checking your phone for a reply that has not come, and you notice you were doing it, and some quiet part of you goes, "Wait, was I not supposed to be done with this by now?" There is a reason that feeling keeps coming back, no matter how much of the work you do. And it has nothing to do with you doing the work wrong. The problem is that almost everything you have been told about what you are working toward is wrong. So let me say the thing this whole video is going to prove to you. Nobody arrives at the final stage. They just learn to keep making the turn. Jung actually wrote about this. A specific, real essay almost nobody making final stage videos ever mentions. There is no ego death in it, no cleared space, no becoming untouchable, no 1%. Just one very ordinary turn most people are never told is coming. We will get to exactly what it is, and to the real reason nobody talks about this stage plainly. You already know the shape of the thing you came in believing, so let me say it back to you, honestly, the way you would say it yourself. There is a final stage to all of this. Awakening, individuation, whatever word you reach for. You have seen the videos, 8 signs you have already reached the Sophia stage. The final stage of awakening most people never make it to, the one about the empath who finally stops absorbing everyone else's pain and becomes apparently untouchable, unbothered, done. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of all this work, healed, integrated, at peace, finished growing. And the whole point of the work is to become that person, and then simply be them. Some people apparently get there. Most people do not. And you would quietly like to know which one you are. And here is the part I am not going to take away from you, because it is true. The work is real. The shadow work, the therapy, the sitting with the things you used to run from, none of that was wasted. Something in you genuinely does change when you do it. So it is not foolish to assume there is a finish line at the end of it, the way there is a finish line at the end of anything else worth working for. That assumption is reasonable. It is also the thing we are going to take apart. So let me ask you the one thing that does not quite fit. If there really is a final stage, a place you get to, and then simply stay, why does the actual man, whose name is on every one of those videos, never once describe it that way in anything he actually wrote? If you have ever finished a real stretch of inner work and quietly wondered why you did not feel done, type this in the comments. I thought there was a finish line. Let me give the belief a name so we can look straight at it. What I call the arrival myth is the quiet assumption underneath all of it. The idea that psychological growth ends at a fixed finished state you reach and then just occupy, like a room you walk into and never have to leave again. This was never really a video about whether you have done enough work to qualify for the final stage. It is about the fact that the final stage, described the way almost everyone describes it, was never real to begin with, and about what Jung actually wrote instead. Some nights the screen is the wrong place for this. If you'd rather just listen, Surreal Mind is on Spotify now. The words, in the dark, wherever you are, links in the description. Because the arrival myth says, growth ends at a fixed finished state. Jung's own writing should describe reaching one somewhere. So watch what it actually says instead. 3 things you are sure of are about to stop being true, one right after another. Start with the first one. Individuation, which is Jung's own name for exactly this process of becoming whole, is described across his own work as something that never reaches a complete, finished state. Not rare, not reserved for the gifted few, structurally missing because the model itself has no endpoint built into it. In his 2 essays on analytical psychology, he draws a line between 2 things people usually blur together. There is the ego, the everyday I, the one reading this, the one that plans and remembers and decides. And there is the self, which he places above and beyond the ego, as the whole of which your conscious mind is only one part. And a part can never fully contain the whole it belongs to. So the thing you are growing toward is always larger than the you that is doing the growing, which means there is no moment where you close your hand around all of it and you are finished. Which means every video promising you a final stage you arrive at and settle into is describing something Jung's own theory says does not exist. Not for the 1%, not for anyone. And because there is no fixed state to reach, whatever he meant by growth in the second half of life has to be something else entirely. So here is what he actually wrote. Then comes the second. Jung wrote a real, specific essay on this exact subject in 1930 called The Stages of Life. And it is not a mystical account of ego death or transcendence. It is plain, almost clinical, at times almost dry. His claim is that most people carry the same psychological operating instructions out of the first half of life and straight into the second half, wholly unprepared, still holding the false assumption that the truths that carried them this far will keep carrying them. He even pointed out that there is no school for it. We have colleges that prepare the young for the world, he said, and nothing at all that prepares a 40-year-old for the second half of their own life. And that mismatch, not a failure to awaken, is where he said most of the suffering he saw in his older patients actually came from. No cleared space, no becoming unrecognizable. Just a mismatch between the program you are running and the life you are actually in now. And the third is the one that should really stop you. The specific vocabulary every final stage video reaches for. The named mystical threshold, the ego death, the becoming untouchable, does not come from this essay. It does not really come from anywhere in Jung's actual writing on the stages of life. It was borrowed, mostly, from later spiritual retellings and dramatized, because a quiet redirection of your attention does not make a compelling thumbnail. Stop on that for a second. 3 things you walked in sure of. That there is a fixed final stage, that reaching it looks like ego death or becoming untouchable, that the videos describing it are describing Jung. All 3 just went down, one after another, inside 2 minutes. The model you came in with is already coming apart in your hands. Notice what is happening in your head right now, because it matters. You are taking a belief you have probably held since the first shadow work video you ever watched, that there is a finish line and the work is how you reach it, and you are rebuilding it in real time. Part of you wants to snap it back into place, because a half-rebuilt idea is an uncomfortable place to stand. Do not snap it back. Stay right here. This is the part that changes how you understand every stretch of inner work you have ever done or ever will, and the shape replacing it keeps everything you already did. The work is real. It just was never meant to end in arrival. It was always building toward a turn. If that just rearranged something, drop a comment. I didn't know there wasn't a finish line, so if there is no fixed state waiting at the end of this, the only useful question left is what Jung actually said happens instead. And it turns out he mapped it almost exactly the way you would map a single day. Morning, noon, afternoon, evening. 4 movements, 1 arc, and your whole life is somewhere inside them right now. Let me walk you through all 4, Start with the morning. This is the part almost nobody argues with, and there is a good reason for that. Picture the years you spend building, your 20s, your 30s, sometimes well past that. You are establishing yourself, learning the work, earning the title, proving you can be trusted with something, building the identity that gets you taken seriously, the version of you that is worth hiring, worth listening to, worth choosing. You are pushing outward into the world and carving out a place to stand in it. And Jung's claim about all of this is refreshingly simple. In the first half of life, that outward push is exactly the right instinct. It is not shallow. It is not ego in the bad sense. It is the correct task for the time. He put it as bluntly as this. For a young person, he said, it is almost a sin, and certainly a danger, to be too much occupied with yourself. In the morning, the work is out there, in the building. This is the part the arrival myth actually gets right, and I want to be completely fair to it. Building outward is exactly what stage one is supposed to be. It is necessary, and nobody skips it and turns out whole. But because the morning's program works so well for the morning, almost everyone quietly assumes it will keep working the same way forever. Same fuel, same direction, just more of it. And here is the exact place that stops being true. If this is the first time anyone has told you the work you already did was real and not just a warm-up for some stage you have not reached yet, subscribe. What this channel does every week is put words to the parts of your life that everyone else skips straight past. Now the noon, somewhere near the middle of life, and not at any fixed age. More a shift you feel than a birthday you pass. The same moves that always worked start to go quiet on you. The promotion lands, and the next morning it is strangely flat. The recognition arrives, and it does not refill anything, or it refills it for about a week. The goal you chased for years finally gets caught, and the satisfaction has a shockingly short shelf life. And the confusing part is that nothing has broken. Your life still looks right on paper. You are not failing at anything. The program just quietly stopped being the point, and nobody warned you it would, so you go looking for what is wrong with you. This is what I call the noon turn. The moment the same energy that spent the entire morning proving itself outward has to change direction and begin pointing inward. This is not the strategy failing you. It did the job it was built for, and then it quietly ran out, right on schedule. And Jung's own words for this, in that same essay, are almost embarrassingly plain. We cannot live the afternoon of life, he wrote, according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be little at evening, and what in the morning was true will at evening have become a lie. That is it. That is the whole final stage everyone is making mystical videos about. Not ego death. A turn almost nobody tells you is coming, so that when it does come, you read it as a breakdown instead of a threshold. He watched it happen to patient after patient, and he named exactly where it tends to surface. The nervous collapse in the 40s, the sense that a life which used to run smoothly has, for no visible reason, stopped running. Very often, he said, that is not a malfunction at all. It is this turn, arriving on time, and being mistaken for a crisis. Now the afternoon, and I have to be careful here, because this is precisely the point where these videos usually go too far, and I am not going to do that to you. The afternoon is what the turn actually asks of you in practice, and the scene of it is probably one you recognize. It is the version of you that answers the flatness by chasing more of the same proof. One more achievement, one more round of validation, one more attempt to refill from the outside a thing that was never designed to be filled that way. And the specific, low, grinding exhaustion that comes with running the morning's engine into the afternoon and wondering why it keeps stalling. Jung's picture of what the turn asks for is gentler and stranger than a surrender. His own image for it is the sun. After it has spent the whole morning pouring its light out over the world, he wrote, "The sun withdraws its rays in order to illumine itself." Look closely at what he is actually saying there. It does not stop shining when it does this. It turns the same light onto something it had never once been pointed at before, onto your own inner life. So hear this part clearly, because this is where the whole idea gets twisted into something it is not. This is not stop caring about your outer life. It is not renounce everything, quit the job, leave the marriage, and become untouchable. It is not ego death. It is the same energy that used to point only outward now, also learning to point inward. You keep the career, you keep the relationships. You just stop asking them to do a job they were never built to do, which was to be the entire source of your meaning. Jung said, the second half of life has its own task, and it is close to the reverse of the first. In youth, being too wrapped up in yourself is a genuine danger, but for the aging person, he wrote, it becomes a duty and a necessity to give serious attention to yourself. He described it as an inner process that slowly turns a life from mounting and expanding to deepening and contracting, and said the people who suffer most are the ones who fight the turn the hardest, because they were taught the second half of life should be run on the principles of the first. That is the redirection. That is all it is. It is undramatic enough that nobody would ever build a thumbnail out of it, which, it turns out, is the actual answer to this video's own title. If you have been quietly doing exactly that, chasing more of the same proof, and wondering why it never lands the way it used to, comment, "I've been chasing more of the same proof." Now the evening, and this is where the very first crack finally closes the loop. You might expect an evening stage where the turn is at last complete, where you have made it all the way inward, and you simply rest there, finished, arrived. There is no such stage. Jung's model of individuation has no last chapter where the process quietly stops running. The turn toward meaning keeps asking to be made, again and differently, for as long as there is a life left to make it in. Even in his final major work, decades later, he was still writing that wholeness is never something you finish and pocket, that on this road you have to keep beginning again from the beginning. So this is the actual final stage, named plainly, not an arrival. The ongoing willingness to keep making the turn, long after the version of you that first needed to hear this has already become someone else. And that, right there, is the real reason almost nobody talks about it plainly. It does not resolve. There is no thumbnail for, and then you keep doing this, quietly, for the rest of your life. So the content that gets made instead invents a finish line, the Sophia stage, the 1%, the cleared space you supposedly arrive in and never leave. Because a story needs an ending, and this one, honestly, does not have one. So put the 4 together, and the whole thing finally clicks into a single shape. The morning built something real. The noon turn asked you to redirect it, not throw it away. The afternoon is what that redirection actually looks like, undramatically over years. And the evening keeps the loop open on purpose, asking you to make the turn again. Which means you do not have a broken process because you do not feel done. You have the correct one, running exactly as designed. Nobody's process finishes. That was never the design. And here is the reframe sitting underneath all of it. Every moment you have been reading as failing to arrive, the flatness after the milestone, the hollow feeling the achievement did not fix, the fact that a video about a long-dead Swiss psychologist is landing on you this hard right now. None of it was evidence that you were not far enough along. It was the turn, quietly asking to be taken, one more time. You are not behind the people in those other videos. They are not further along than you. There is no further along. There is only whether you are making the turn again today or fighting it again today. Jung said the line that seals it, and it is the honest opposite of a finish line. The serious problems of life, he wrote, are never fully solved. And if they should for once appear to be, that is the sign that something has been lost. The meaning of a problem, he said, lies not in solving it, but in working at it, without end. Read that twice, because it flips the whole thing over. The moment your life feels finally, permanently solved is not the trophy. It is the warning light. It means you have stopped somewhere you were supposed to keep moving through. So you now understand, at a level you did not have half an hour ago, exactly why the final stage never resolved for you. Not because you are not one of the rare few who make it, because it was never built to resolve for anyone. And that is the actual reward here. Not a slogan to feel better with. The real mechanism in your hands for why the flatness kept coming back. He was not describing a mountain with a summit you reach and then stand on. He was describing a day, and a day does not end at noon. It just turns. The flatness after the milestone was never proof you were not far enough along. It was the noon turn, asking to be taken. The hollow feeling after the achievement was never a character flaw. It was energy still aimed at a target that had quietly stopped working. The comparison to people who seem further along was never even accurate. There is no further along, only whether the turn is being made today. And the fact that this is landing as hard as it is right now was never you being behind. It was the turn, still asking, the same way it has asked every single day since the morning first stopped being enough. So none of this means the work you did was wasted, and it does not mean you should stop doing it. It means finishing was never the job at all. Staying in the turning was, on purpose, instead of waiting to be forced into it by the breakdown that finally takes you off your feet. Nobody arrives at the final stage. They just learn to keep making the turn. So locate yourself before you go. Which one are you actually standing in tonight, still building in the morning, right at the noon turn, where the old moves have started to go quiet on you, learning what the afternoon is really asking for, or back at the turn again in the evening, making it one more time. Whichever one you just felt land, put its name in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension. Empaths aren't broken, they're alchemists in progress. The Alchemist's Path gives you drills, Jung-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com.